Hello everyone and welcome to meddysimplified. My name is Dr. Shubham Mishra, also known as meddysimplified. So in this video we will talk about types of bones. So types of bones. What is there to learn about it, right? So first I'll ask you a question. If you are able to answer that, then there's no need to watch this video and spend your more 10 to 12 minutes. But if you can't, then let's spend 10 to 12 minutes together so that we can get clear with the basics, which is very much required for anat as well as sometimes in orthopedics. So first tell me, according to the shapes, how many types of bones do you know? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10. So if any of the answers, if any of you are answering this, then it's totally wrong. The correct answer is 7. So there are total 7 types of bones according to the shapes. So let's discuss it now, 10 to 12 minutes, so that we can be thorough with it, and we should make our basics in this subject, that is anat and orthopedics, a bit stronger. So let's do it. So what we are going to talk about, we are going to talk about types of bones, according to their shape, according to their shape. So I told you how many type of bones we have. 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So let's note down. First we have long bones. Then we have a short bone. Then we have irregular bones. Then we have flat bones. We have sesamoid bones. We have accessory bones. And not but the least, very important, pneumatic bones. Pneumatic bones. Okay, so these are the in all 7 types of bones which we have. So now let's start with the first one, that is the long bone. We'll talk about each and every type one by one. So first we will start with long bones. So what is important about long bones? Long bones are further divided into 3 types. One is typical long bone. Then we have miniature long bone. We have modified long bone. So these are the basic 3 types of long bones. First we have 7 types according to shape. Then in first one, that is the long bone, we have 3 types, that is typical, miniature and modified. So what is the difference, how they are classified in this way? So first I'll tell you about the typical long bone. So typical long bone, it consists of 2 epiphyses, one above and one up, and 1 diaphysis. So they have 2 epiphyses and 1 diaphysis. So they are typical long bone. Whereas if you talk about the miniature long bone, it has 1 epiphysis and 1 diaphysis. So what about the modified bones? The modified bones, they are not according to this epiphysis or diaphysis. They are kind of typical long bone, but they do not have medullary cavity. So modified long bones have no medullary cavity. So this was the basic idea, how they are divided. Now let's talk about the examples, which is very important and asked in many exams. So example of typical long bone is femur, humerus, and other bones of limbs, of upper and lower limb bones, I'll say, right? So this includes the tibia, the fibula, the radius ulna, this kind of bone. Then the example of modified is metacarpal and metatarsals. Then for modified long bone, we have different examples. We have clavicle over here. Then we have bones of vertebrae. Bones of vertebrae is a very important example to remember for exams. Now getting forward, next is second one was the short bones. Next one is short bones. So what do we know about short bones? Short bones, they have a characteristic shape. So usually the short bones are cubical in shape. They are cubical in shape. Okay. So example of short bones are carpals and tarsals. The 8 carpal and 7 tarsals are the example of typical short bones. Exception is there, talus, calcaneum and cuboid. They are not the short bones, or I'll say all the carpals and tarsals are the short bones. Let's keep it simple. Then third one is the flat bones. Now what is flat bones? Flat bone consists of two kind of bone in one bone. From the outside, it is a compact bone, the outer table and the inner table, I will say. So this is an example of compact bone, whereas inside it is having a spongy bone. So flat bone is a kind of diploid. Okay, we call it as a this such organization of this bone is called as diploid. Now function. The flat bones play a very important function in protection of, in the protection of the visceral organs, in the protection of the visceral organs. So function is protection of viscera. Protection of viscera. So do you know any example of such bones? So first is mostly all the skull bones. All the skull bones, they are kind of flat bones. If you observe them, this parietal, occipital, frontal, these are example of short bones, flat bones. Then we have sternum, ribs, and scapula. Sternum, ribs, and scapula. These are also an example of flat bone. The skull bones are protecting the brain, whereas sternum, ribs, and scapula. Sternum, ribs, and scapula, they are protecting the, what they are protecting? They are protecting the thoracic cavity, the organs of the thoracic cavity, that is basically lungs and cardio, heart. Then the third, the fourth one is the irregular bone. In irregular bone, examples are very important. That is what we need to remember. Irregular bone, example is hip bone, then the vertebrae, that is a very common example of a regular bone. Also we have bones in base of skull, for example ethmoid bone, sphenoid bone. These are examples of irregular bone. So ethmoid, sphenoid, etc. So irregular bone, example hip bone, vertebral bones, vertebrae, then bones in the base of skull, that is ethmoid and sphenoid. Now talking about another example, another kind of bone, that is pneumatic bones. Okay, so what is example important about pneumatic bone? They contain air-filled cavity. They contain air-filled cavity. Okay, they contain air-filled cavity. So what function they have? They are responsible for resonance of voice and also for air conditioning. So, or you can say air conditioning. So they are responsible for resonance of voice basically. Now, what is the example of such bones? What is the example? So example is all the bones which have the sinuses, the four sinuses. So frontal, okay, I'll write it along with it. I'll name the sinus. So the first is the frontal, which consists frontal sinus, then parietal. Sorry, the parietal is not an example. Then sphenoid and maxilla and ethmoid. Okay, so these are example of, all are forming sinuses, and these are example of pneumatic bone. Then the next example is, the next type of bone is sesamoid bone. Next type of bone is sesamoid bone. So sesamoid bone is very important. What we should know about sesamoid bone, sorry for this. What we should know about sesamoid bone, they usually develop in the tendon of muscle. They usually develop in the tendon of muscles. Okay. Then second important thing is they develop after the birth. They are not present at birth. If you know any example of a sesamoid bone, the very common, that is the patella also. So they develop after the birth. They are not present at birth exactly. Then third is they're devoid of periosteum. They lack periosteum and they lack Haversian system. All the bones have a Haversian canal, Haversian system, and this sesamoid bones lack them because they are developing from the tendon of muscle. Also, they are devoid of periosteum, the outer covering, all the bones which we have. Then what are the example of this bones? What are the example of sesamoid bones? So first, very common and known by everyone is patella. Example is patella. And where is the patella, or from which muscle tendon the patella is formed? So it is formed by quadriceps femoris. It is formed by quadriceps femoris. Then the next example is pisiform. The pisiform, one of the carpal bone, it is formed by the FCU, that is the flexor carpi ulnaris. Flexor carpi ulnaris. Then third example, which I want to mention, is fibula. So where does the fibula is formed? It is formed in the lateral head of the gastrocnemius muscle. Lateral head of gastrocnemius muscle. All right. Then one more very common, very important is rider's bone. Rider's bone. It is formed in the muscle tendon of adductor longus muscle. Adductor longus muscle. So these were the 6 important types of bone. Then the 7th one, which is not so important, but we are discussing it for the namesake. That is the accessory bones. Accessory bones. It is also known as supernumerary bones. It is also known as supernumerary bones. Why it is called as supernumerary bones? Because in X-rays, if we do X-rays, this accessory bones look like a fractured bone. So they look like a fracture. So it is also called as supernumerary bones. Now what next? The example is the sutural bones. The example is the sutural bones in lambdoid bone. Over here, the lambdoid suture. So there, one second, lambdoid bone. So yes, so the lambdoid bone, sutural bone and the lambdoid bone are example of accessory bone. So these were all the 7 types of bone. Hope you remember it very well and prepare very well, so that whenever next time someone asks you the types of bones, you don't forget it. So thanks for watching the video. Hope you liked it, and that is the very basic. This was the very basic topic of the anatomy and also used in many times in orthopedics. So thanks for watching the video. Please like, share and subscribe my channel, meddysimplified. Thank you.